Have you ever run out of gas? I suppose every family has a story about that. I remember one time coming back from Parry Sound, from Sudbury actually, and thought, well, yes, I looked at the gauge and thought, there's a gas station in Noble. That'll be about the right place to be able to stop and get some gas and make the rest of the way home. Well, we made our way and the station in Noble was closed. So most of you guys will know that when your wives think they're going to be left on the side of the road, they get a little anxious. But we made it to Parry Sound and got gas there and did fine. My car tends to run on fumes anyway. We have various reasons for not filling up. That is, maybe we're waiting for somewhere cheaper along the way, or we want to get to the station that we have a points card for, or we want to make sure that it's a real and worthwhile fill up when we do it, and I guess that's the way I was thinking. And sometimes people just forget to look at the gauge. But every now and again, we have this risk about running out of gas. It's a big part of our lives to keep the tanks filled. Well, we have this very famous story of the 10 bridesmaids and the lamps. It's an important parable in the Bible. It talks about how some had lots ahead to be able to have their lamps run through the night, but the others didn't come prepared and their lamps were empty. They would not last. And so we get this curious story. It's a little tough along the way. 5 of the bridesmaids said, well, we don't have enough oil to give to you, or we might run out. So they couldn't just borrow some oil to keep things going. It was olive oil and didn't need to be a very high quality, so they could easily get some in the community. But while they're away getting some oil, the groom comes, the wedding starts, and they close the doors. And they say, you can't come in. You cannot come out in. So it's a pretty blunt story, and many in the faith will say it's a story about the end. And so we in the United Church don't talk too much about the end, whether it's for the end of the world or for us as individuals. But it is an important lesson for us about not being distracted and tempted into not so useful activities, to be able to be prepared for eventual times. And so we read it more broadly that way, but some would read it quite bluntly as the gospel is, that the 5 who had no oil were not allowed in. Be ready. That's what you have to be. Uncle Bill was a pretty traditional United Church guy. His children were in Sunday school every Sunday. He got to church sometimes, and he lived a good life. On into retirement, he got cancer. He spent some time in the hospital. So the United Church minister would, as usual, stop around quite regularly, have some conversation about life, and share some interest and prayer about God taking away the pain. During that time, the local Baptist minister also started dropping by and seeing Bill. And they seemed to develop a bit of a relationship, and that was nice because one needs lots of support and care and visits in the hospital. So after he died, the family thought we should invite both ministers to the funeral. And so the United Church minister got up there with our usual, we're here to grieve together and to offer our sympathy to the family and our care for them. And we're also here to celebrate his life. And Bill had a good and great life. He led in the family business that offered great service for many decades to the whole community. He was always helpful and loved his family very well and had lots of skills and talents that were spoken of. The Baptist minister got up and said, when I was visiting Bill in the hospital, he said the sinner's prayer. He accepted Jesus as his Lord and Savior. He got saved. And if you want to see Bill again, you better get yourself right with Jesus. I think to this day I have a brother and sister-in-law who, in the middle of a minor discussion, one of them will come out with, if you want to see Bill again. Well, the story is after the Sermon on the Mount and is a very significant one. And so the parable is very significant in that weddings are a big deal, aren't they? It doesn't seem to matter what culture you're in or what time in history you're in, weddings can be quite a big production. They're important. After all, the formation of a family is something that's very important for our whole culture. And so there are always lots of preparations, and I think everybody has stories about just about every wedding. There is a lot of time in planning. There's the engagement, the pre-marriage sessions with the minister, maybe a prenup agreement with a lawyer. There's the planning of the service, the rehearsal, the dress, the flowers, the catering, the music, the honeymoon. Weddings are a huge production with lots of drama, lots of need for preparation. People want to be ready because it lowers the anxiety, it lowers the stress, it maybe puts some control on the drama. They are a major thing. And we will remember them forever. So for most of us ministers, we'll say the most important lesson and planning that you can have is to relax and have fun. Because after all, it's a good time, it's an important time, and something that you'll remember for the rest of your lives. So try to have fun. Keep the right priorities in your planning. There are instructions that go along the way sometimes about how to be prepared and how to plan and how to avoid procrastination, putting things off. Well, it seems to be a bit of a problem for some of us. We like to put things off because there might be a better time later. That's why we end up running out of gas sometimes. One of the steps is avoid the excuses. They're just a distraction. We're looking for instant gratification now. We don't really want to get to it, so we just make an excuse for not doing it. And we need to find ways to kind of stop that so that we can get it done. A second hint is to make a list. Lists written down are right there in front of you. And they help you face it and look at all these things you have to do. Maybe what your priorities might be of these things that have to be done. Maybe what should get done first and what will be later. And maybe even what is the hardest thing to do and what might be easier. And sometimes there are suggestions that we should start with the hardest and get that done. Because once we do things, check them off the list. we get a kind of a gratification. We are thankful for that. We have done the job, and it helps to build momentum to do even more jobs. A third tip is stay busy. You know, a story in the church that we have, the people who are really busy are the ones to ask to do things because we'll know they'll get to it and do it. And so it's about keeping busy and doing the jobs you have to do. The fourth tip is simply start. There are too many distractions in life, especially in this time. One needs to get focused on the job at hand, see it, start seeing it done, start getting that gratification, see the accomplishments that you have had. And the fifth tip, just be a doer. We get so distracted in this time by social media. We easily pull out our phones and just check that Facebook and all the other things that we might be signed up for. We sometimes have all those TV shows we like to follow, and we hear the news 8 times during the day just to see if there are any changes. We think it's always time to go have a coffee, which is a pretty popular thing, and we hope you do that after church. Just getting to it is helpful in being able to say, yes, we have done the task. We have prepared. We have moved along. The parable is a reminder to be disciplined and prepared in the faith. And there are many things that we can do to do that. One is to have a daily prayer time to simply review with God what it is that we feel we want to do in the day, but also just to be with God and to build our spirituality. It's so easy for us in our busy times to forget about. Let's just take some time to pray and reflect. I remember one of the leaders in the church saying to me that we were going through this process of having a minute or two of silent prayer during the regular pastoral prayer in the service. And he said, yes, I'm a leader in the church and I come here every Sunday, but you know, that time of silence during the prayer is about the only time during the whole week that he found he was able to simply sit and reflect and pray to God. Take that moment in a day and be disciplined about it. Take some time to study and reflect. There's so much going on in the world today. We're never sure quite what we should be paying attention to and quite what our response should be. And we currently have that conflict that we hear so much about between Israel and the Palestinians, Hamas, and we wonder what's right and good in all of that because it all seems so harsh, so hard, so many people dying. What is going to be accomplished in the end? And so it's not about whose side are we on, but the desire that we have to end these wars, to bring some peace, to find new life for people. And we can do good works, be charitable. Many ways that we help out. We're recognizing some of that today in our chili lunch. We are glad to be able to say, yes, in our church, there are various things that we do, and there are various things we do in our personal lives to reach out and to care for others. So we are thankful for this parable that's given to us. It can be a bit of a challenge for us and seems a bit harsh, but we know that in our lives, it is really important for us to be prepared, to plan ahead, to look for good things in the future.